Welcome to the Eclectic Gamers Podcast. Today is Sunday, February 2nd. This is episode 238.
Wow.
I'm Tony.
I'm Dennis. Tony, before I ask you what's going on, I do want to say we got a new Patreon member.
Yay!
And we love to announce it. So Chris D, thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate the support. And Chris actually has a game for us that he emailed in earlier in the week. Well, now technically last week. So we're going to play that at the end of the pinball segment, even though
I look forward to losing the game.
It's not about pinball. I'm just sticking in the pinball segment because I didn't want to do it right at the start of the show. So it's going to be in the spirit of a pinball game. But the game itself, there's no right or wrong. Spoiler alert, it's a this or that.
I'm still going to lose.
You can't lose unless we ask the audience, and they're going to side with you because they like you more. Speaking of liking you more, I think it's because of what you play in between games. So what have you been playing? Surely not Brotato.
I still been playing.
Oh my God, let it go.
I haven't let it go. I have heavily reduced because I mentioned, I think, last episode that during the winter sale, I bought all the DLC for Battlestar Galactica Deadlock.
Yes, you.
So I started a new Deadlock game to play through the main game with one of the first DLCs was a bunch of add-ons for the main story. So they're like secondary missions that take place during the main story. So I added all of that, and I'm doing a new playthrough of the main game, and then I'm going to go and play through the DLCs. So that's been taking more of my time. So I still been playing a fair amount of Brotato, but I've only added a few percentage points to my completion status, and I'm at the point where with the main original game in Brotato, I'm down to like the really hard characters to beat the game with, or at least the ones that I'm having problems beating the game with. So I've kind of been segueing to playing the DLC and beating the game with the characters that are easier.
Well, understandable. I shouldn't really have criticized because I'm still playing Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Here's the problem. I thought I would be much further along, if not done with it by now. However, it's got so many mini games in it. I'm now in the base building game, which even has a completely different menu for like saving and stuff. Then it feels almost like a module that got added on.
Weird.
Yeah, I'm building up an island resort. And I'm doing it because my assumption is this is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And I've been playing, and I'm like, I'm really poor. Where is all my money that I'm supposed to get? There are things like in the shopping malls, weapons and gear and stuff that are hundreds of thousands of US dollars. And I'm like, I should at some point be able to buy these things, right? But I have like $3,000, and that's because I've beaten like multiple bosses, and I'm being really stingy with my money. So I'm now in the base building section. This is separate from the Pokemon section where I go and fight Sujimon battles, where I have a group of 3 things, and I throw them out against the enemy, and I'm challenging these various gym leaders. And anyway, there's always been a number of mini games and Yakuza games, but this is just... There's just a lot that's designed to suck your time away.
Are you waiting for Preston Garvey to show up and tell you that there's a settlement in need of your assistance?
You know, he is probably in there somewhere. There's been a lot. There are dating sim like phone style stuff that you need to do, and you need to capture the Sujimon as well. You don't just battle them. You go around and you like try and capture them after you beat them and weaken them in combat. And there's a Crazy Taxi style game where you're delivering food on a bicycle and you need to do tricks. So it's like SSX Tricky plus Crazy Taxi. There's just a lot. So anyway, I'm in the base.
So it's a Yakuza game, basically.
Yeah, I guess. But now I'm in a base building thing. So I'm just like, yeah, it feels like I'm building a base in Fallout 4, but with less apocalypse. Yeah, less apocalyptic stuff and more costumed mascots and adorable. It's like Sim theme park too, because I'm trying to bring in guests and stuff, and they have needs and wants, and you need to wave to them, and you also need to fight the washbucklers, which are pirates who are legally dumping trash on the island. I'm cleaning up the island to turn it back into a resort because it has become a landfill. So there's also a core environmental message to it. It's there are a lot of layers here. There are a lot of layers.
Like a Captain Planet.
Yes. So, speaking of captaining this vessel that is this podcast, let's go ahead and go into the pinball segment.
Segue!
That's right. And I'm going to start the segue with an email. You know, a couple episodes ago in particular is the one where we focused on Stern Pinball's Dungeons & Dragons pinball And we had an email about that. So Skippy wrote in regarding our discussion to say the following. Yana, the plaintiff says that D&D is too nerdy of a theme. My one and only retort to that statement is, your hobby is pinball. You collect pinball machines in your basement. Too nerdy? Don't look now, but pinball isn't exactly the sexiest hobby on earth. I rest my case.
He's not wrong.
Thank you, Skippy.
Skippy is not wrong.
The irony was not lost on me that there were a number of people looking at D&D and going, nerd. And I'm like, look, you might remember that Fonzie had a scene in Happy Days where he was playing pinball. But broadly speaking, pinball is not cool. It's an arcade thing.
Right.
So, look, I know the people who thought they were the bad boys.
You have to understand the pinball people. Yeah. To pinball people, there's a hierarchy. Video, arcade game players, are below pinball. Pinball's classier.
Yeah, there is a bit of elitism that goes into it. I think that's part of it. I also think that the complexity, the likelihood of pinball breaking, and the perceived need to understand how to fix it, kind of. Again, arcade games go down. I know a lot of people who collect arcade games that got into them, but what do arcade game people do other than put in new monitors and recap stuff? It's like with pinball, it's like the ball gets stuck and we got to adjust the level and we got to demagnetize these balls or get new ones in, and you got to wax the play field, and it just requires more love to make it work.
Yeah.
So there's also, I think, a sense of we're smarter than arcade people because we had to figure out more stuff that breaks. But in reality, with modern pinball collectors, most of them don't have to fix anything. So they get upset when they have to, re-level a game or install a mod. So. And hey, they can at the prices they are today. I think they're right to get upset, so that's okay too. But
they're looking down from the balcony. Oh, look at those lower tier arcade gamers.
Now, as I tried to do a genteel Southern accent in reading Skippy's email, you probably noticed, because I'm not editing it out, that I stumbled over certain sections. So I have another email. This one's from Joe C., and I need to provide some context before going in. So here's the thing. I don't say all the words the same way that a lot of people say them. One might argue that I can say words wrong. And Joe's email is really going to dive into one that has come up a lot, particularly on the Pinball Show, which is the word modern. So I do know how to say modern, but I am a Kansan and I speak very fast, maybe even for a Kansan. So when I say modern really quick, it often will come out as modern. So it sounds 3 syllables because I'm going to blame how my tongue hits my teeth when I do it. But anyway, it has become a running thing now.
I'm interested in how this is because you're a Kansan.
I'm blaming Midwestern tropes for causing this in me because I assume that there are other things that Midwesterners do. You, as an Eastern Midwesterner, might not have the same proclivities, but Travis Murray, who we correspond with a lot, from Oklahoma, a lot of people would criticize how he says tour as tur. Tur. Which, again, if I hear that from a Midwesterner, I don't think anything of it. I don't know if I say it like tour or tour. I probably say it both ways, quite frankly, depending on how fast I talk. So it's just one of those things. Or Zach Minnie, who I do the other show with, Indianan, Jaws, the shark, Jowls. He adds an L. All right, that was a little more wrong. But don't get me wrong, modern is not the right way to say modern. So this is what Joe wrote. Hi, Tony and Dennis. I've been a longtime listener of the show. Well, in truth, just the pinball half. I have one small request that I'd like to make of Dennis if he could indulge me on the next episode. For my personal edification, I would like to hear his pronunciation of the following words in descending order. Modern, Southern, Northern, Eastern, Western, Govern, Tavern, Intern, Cavern, Concern, Fern, Stern. Thank you for your time. I look forward to the next episode, as always. So that was how, with me being deliberate trying to say it. Here's how I would say it fast so that he gets what I think he was after. Modern, Southern, Northern, Eastern, Western, Govern, Tavern, missed Western. Western, Tavern, Intern, Cavern, Concern, Fern, Stern. So some of those probably got 3-syllabled, but I was talking really fast. So there you go.
So yeah.
But Joe is not alone in this, by the way. I had someone mention how they, I guess, look forward to me saying modern on Pinside.
I look forward to you saying.
I had someone message me through Messenger, through Facebook, who had never messaged me before saying, please never say modern again. I hate it. I hate it, and I hate how you say it, and I like I like the show, and I like what you say on the show, except your words. Stop your words. Stop using that word.
Why are your words like ice picks to their ears?
I don't know. I got a follow-up saying, because as of the last pinball show, I've been very deliberate, because I use the word modern a lot, because I talk about modern pinball a lot. And so they appreciated that I've made a concerted effort to actually not say it. Again, I know how it's supposed to be said, but when I'm just going, it becomes modern. I'm just
modern.
It's like I trip the letter. I don't know why.
Interesting.
It's just one of those proclivities, I suppose. Joe wasn't done though.
Oh, good.
No, Joe sent a separate email. So thank you, Joe, by the way, for the last email, and we thank you for this one as well, because it's giving us content, even if it is at completely my expense. So. This was regarding our best and worst theme discussion. Do you recall that discussion we had?
I do.
Of course you did, because we just recently did it. But this is what he wrote on that. Oh, and one note addition on the latest episode segment regarding best worst themes in the past 5 years.
The modern themes.
The modern themes, yes. Choosing to just use Toy Story 4 for a pinball theme would not be like just using Moonraker as the only James Bond movie for your pinball game. It would be more like only using the non-Eon production Bond film Never Say Never Again as the only movie for your James Bond pinball. Okay, thanks again, Joe, for the email. I disagree, because the Eon production is not the official. It's not official Bond. Like, it's not seen as official Bond. That was a whole. For those that don't know, now that's the one where Sean Connery came back.
Right.
I think that's the one with Kim Basinger in it. It's the one where they play the video game that causes pain. I remember that.
Yes.
It's the only scene I remember. Never Say Never Again is just a remake of Thunderball. And the reason it is because Thunderball had multiple rights holders, and eventually the other rights holder, who wasn't working with Eon Productions, got granted through litigation the right to make their own version of the movie, and that's what they ended up doing. And that came out the same year as, I think it was the same. Roger Moore had one come out that year as well. Was it From Russia with Love? I don't remember this part. So, but I believe both that we saw 2 Bond movies in a year. And this one was not seen as very good.
No.
But here's the thing. It was it's unofficial. It's not seen as canon. Just like the spoof Casino Royale with David Niven, I believe. That's not seen as a canonical James Bond. Only the Eon production ones are canonical. Toy Story 4 is canonical, is my understanding. It's not like, hey, let's get some weird. Let's get some weird studio to.
Yeah, it wasn't done by DreamWorks. Or it's some other no-name studio. Not that DreamWorks is a no-name studio, but
who did do Toy Story? What was the animation studio?
Pixar.
Oh, I guess that was their first, wasn't it? Or first CG one, right? I don't remember.
I don't know on that.
Look, I don't care. But my point is that it was part of the official chain. So I still stand by my Moonraker analogy. I don't know if you feel differently, Tony, but
Moonraker's a terrible movie. Never Say Never Again is a terrible movie. So
Moonraker was so desperately trying to, hey, look, that Star Wars thing was really popular. Let's put James Bond up against Vader. Except Vader is Jaws, and we'll just have lots of lasers and
right,
and the moon.
And as I recall, it ends with, doesn't Jaws fall in love with that tiny little blonde girl?
Yeah,
something
she
like
falls
that.
in love with someone and crash back to Earth and live happily ever after. Because this was the second movie with Jaws, because he was in a prior film. But news. All right, thank you. We're not actually done with all the emails, but I want to jump into news. There's one piece of there's one news. There's only one news. So, Alice in Wonderland. We've talked about it, Tony. We've talked about the DPX, PX. Yes, thank you. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Well, you know what? Someone was like, there's got to be some competition. This theme is non-licensed. It's open source. Let's do it. And so, welcome to Wonderland Amusements. So I actually recently talked about this on the last week's episode of the Pinball Show, but I thought this definitely warrants a discussion with you because there is absolutely nothing else to talk about. So Wonderland Amusements is building Wonderland Pinball. Alice Goes to Wonderland. They have a Kickstarter. As of yesterday evening, Tony, I checked. The Kickstarter is still not live, so I do not know how much money they want to raise. However, their goal is to make a pinball machine for the home market that will be under $1,000 US. How are they doing this? We don't entirely know yet. They do have some photos on the placeholder Kickstarter page of like some of the stuff, some of the art. I've seen a picture of the layout, kind of a fan layout look, but the main thing is it's not going to be a full-sized commercial pinball machine. It's going to be about 80% the size of a typical pinball machine. So that's the plan. The team behind Arcade 1-Up is the group that's doing this. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are about just the idea of this. And in our internal notes, I have included a photo of what I assume is going to be the Backglasser Translite. And I included that because this was a point of discussion that I brought up on the other podcast, which was this what I assume is AI art from Alice's potato face, which is, we have criticized the DPX art, but this is like art, like they turned her into a vegetable. So I'm bothered by that. I'm bothered by the teacup that the Mad Hatter has looking like the tea looks like hair to me. To other weird things like you have the Queen of Hearts on the left and her soldiers. Then why is the 7 a diamond, not a heart? Why is the 9 of Hearts ear flap on his head a spade but painted red? I think I see where they're saving the money. But what do you think of the idea of a sub $1,000 almost full-size pinball machine? Does the market hunger for this?
Oh, I'm sure the market hungers for something like this, but I don't know that it's something that can actually happen with the bill of materials to have anything that's not just a cardboard Cracker Jack box pile of junk. I think it's one of those things that if you go back, I can't remember what episode it was. It was a long time ago. You can listen to my extended long diatribe about how I got burned in a Kickstarter.
That was about an hour-long discussion.
It was, and here's the, I have not quit Kickstarter since that
addiction.
Burn, but I am very careful about what I do Kickstart since that time. And I've only done a few either small or things from groups that I trust. Okay, I went kind of crazy one time, but that one all worked out for me. So. But it's definitely a thing you should look into before you kickstart something and plan around how much and how you are going to support. And just be aware that like any other form of gambling, there's no guarantee that you're going to get anything out of it.
Mm-hmm. I do think that if you want to grow pinball, this price point for modern pinball does not work for a lot of reasons. It easily becomes the most expensive thing in the game room, and getting a type of experience like pinball under $1,000 solves a huge barrier that they have. Even if it's a flimsy cardboard piece of junk, it lets you still have that visceral physical pinball experience. That the closest you can get right now is like a VPin, a virtual pinball machine, which is really just an arcade game. None of them that I know of that are in this price range have any sense of haptic feedback. So it's really just a easier way to see the screen style because you have the vertical orientation sort of thing, which is fine if that's what you want. But now, all that said, my story of where I think there's a market for this changes a little bit, actually a lot of it, with all these tariff moves that the U.S. is now doing, because I don't know if they can build this for $1,000 at this point. A week ago I thought they could, but I don't know at this stage, because there's no way this is all going to be homegrown stuff. So they're going to have to rely on importing a lot of things. And if those costs have all gone up at least 25% now, I don't know how they make their sub 1,000. It seemed like a tight margin already. So I'm very skeptical that it can be done in the current climate. But anyway, it's an interesting idea. So we'll see. It's hard to say more until we see how much they want to raise on Kickstarter, because I don't know yet.
Right, and that's always the question. Until they go live, you don't know. There's just no way to tell.
But anyway, the art is trash. I will say that. All right.
I agree.
We have another email, Tony. This one's from Doug M. He wrote in to us. He wants to bring up something that came up on the Pinball Show. So he says, "Hi, Tony. Hi, Dennis. Dennis, you and Zach briefly touched on the topic of Stern using code names to hide the titles of upcoming games. Stepping aside from the email for a moment, Tony, for example, you're familiar with these. For example, Jurassic Park was codenamed Jaws when it was in development at Stern.
Yeah.
And apparently, what I did not know, but Zach told me, is it gets confusing because sometimes they get things like toppers and the code name is on the box, not the official name. So you get a topper for Jurassic Park and it says Jaws on the box. It's so amateur.
How annoying.
It's so amateur.
So dumb.
What a Mickey Mouse move. Anyway, continuing on with the email. I thought you two could expand on this a bit. My question for you gentlemen is this. Why bother? I ask why bother because when was the last time the pinball community was actually surprised by a title on the day it was released? As long as I have been in this hobby, which is coming up on 30 years, think rec.games.pinball Usenet group. The upcoming game title. Yeah, I used to use that for research.
I did too.
The upcoming game title was leaked all over the internet months, even years before the game launch. Do pinball manufacturers simply not care if an upcoming title is leaked, or do they just suck at keeping their staff quiet? Or is there another source that allows an upcoming title to get leaked prior to launch time? Or is my perspective skewed because I am deeply involved in the hobby and I have access to information that the casual pinball player would not have? Curious your thoughts on this. Keep up the good work. Love the show. Well, thank you for the email and for the kind words, Doug. Tony.
I think the use of like code words is just simply to try and keep things officially under wraps with the knowledge of the games being worked on coming out because of, like you said, just employees talking to people who talk to people who talk to people who talk to people. I don't think they're trying to keep, this isn't like top secret. It's designed more around having them maintain plausible deniability about leaking stuff and them to be able to just not comment on stuff in an official capacity. I think most the stuff that leaks is just word of mouth that gets out there. And I think a lot of people who aren't as deeply buried in the hobby as like yourself or Dennis and I and everyone listening to this podcast, for a lot of them, the game announcements might be surprises because we are all very much of buried enough into the news cycles and the forums and everything else that we get to see all the little stuff focused down, concentrated as it were, while people who are just more casually into it might only see the big announcements. So that could be their primary aim. That could be their primary goal.
Yeah, in terms of the use of the code names, I do agree about the why bother. I don't really see the point. I assume back in the day, perhaps, maybe this was common at Williams, and maybe they used the teams were in competition with each other. I assumed all the teams knew what each other was working on, though. So I don't know if it was just for like document purposes. If you had write-ups, it was better to have the code names in the documents in case a memo accidentally fell into the wrong hands or whatever. But I'm very skeptical of this because back in the day, like in the 90s, they would take the games before they were to be announced and they would test them on locations and stuff. It was less. I think it's stupid, quite frankly. Or if you want to do it because you think it does something, or you want to do it because you just enjoy it, like it's just a cute little fun thing, like a joke internally, that's fine with me. I don't understand why they're ever putting the names on them on cardboard, like putting code names on cardboard boxes and stuff.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's just goofy. Also, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably pretty goofy to use code names for other games that you might make or you know you're going to make. I think something got codenamed Goonies, for example. It's just like it's like
at that point that's just trolling.
Why are you just? And that's the thing. Maybe they want the code names to leak, or maybe they encourage it to leak. Which leads me to the second part of Doug's question for you, which is, do you think that the pinball manufacturers simply just don't care about the title leaking?
100%. I don't think they care. Unless there's something written into their licensing agreement that requires them to be special about it and secret. I don't think they actually care. They don't ever have to comment on what people seem to think. They just let it go.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's their caring only goes as far as legal obligation to shield the announcement. It's usually there's a planned announcement. We've seen plenty of pinball manufacturers say, well, we had to announce, like this was our agreement, so we had to announce at this point. So there's this announcement and there's this fanfare. I personally, and I've said this for years now, I think it's silly. I disagree with Josh Sharp and his argument about it undermining production on the line to know that this other game is coming up, because people already think they know off of all of these rumors. The pinball industry leaks like a sieve, by and large, significant leaking. It's gotten so far that Zach had noted, and I know other pinball distributors do this as well, they maintain interested lists for all the rumored titles.
Yeah.
So you're not... People, if you want to get on the list for Back to the Future from Stern, you can do that, even though you've heard that Dutch Pinball has Back to the Future. Like, you can get on these lists. People just maintain them because everyone's going around talking about what they think is coming out years in advance. The video game industry announces years in advance, and it's not out there sabotaging all the sales of each other. What sabotages sales more is when you release the game up against Monster Hunter. Oops.
Yeah.
That's when you get sunk. In the pinball world, that's, hey, look, you went ahead and you dropped your game against Elwyn's.
Right.
Oops. Should have known better.
Or, hey, we're every company dropped their game in the same week. Sorry, somebody's losing. And I can tell you what, it's not Stern.
And a lot of these mentalities date back to when operators were the ones running all of these games. And now it's mostly a homeowner market that's going and getting them. So I agree with you, Tony. I agree with Doug, in the sense that I just don't see the point in really any of this. I think as long as they know that the game is going to get made, again, they're going to honor their obligation. So if their agreement is we're going to do this fanfare announcement and officially roll out the name at the time the game's ready and not a year in advance, fine. I don't care. But in terms of why the things leak and why are they so leaky, I think a lot of it is just, it is fun for a lot of people to know something and then to share that knowledge. It makes you feel special. It makes you feel like when you know something that no one else knows and do you not like to tell people and say, hey, here's an interesting thing that I found out. It's cool. I like doing it. So I think a lot of people do. So that's why it leaks. It's not so much about, I think there's not really a lot of disincentive to the staff to stay quiet, and they love to go and hear their rumor, said on a podcast or written on a blog or whatever, and it just happens. So anyway, those are my takes. Okay. Last email, and we'll move to the video games. Chris D, our new Patreon member.
Yes.
I said he had a game for us. He emailed it in. So this is what it says. Hi, guys. Longtime listener and recent Patreon subscriber. I keep up with all of your new releases, but I find myself listening to old episodes as well. Hey, he might know which episode was your Kickstarter round.
It was a long time ago.
Email us what number it is if you know. Don't go out of your way, but if you know, email us eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com to remind us, and we can plug it on the next episode. But now we have using the Patreon members to do our own research. And this is why we don't have that many Patreon members. But anyway.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. But he said he's listening to the older stuff, and it's all still available. So even episode 1, I accidentally was checking something on the iTunes thing, and I accidentally clicked on it, and I forgot how careful we were back when we first started.
Right. But the question is episode 2 still there? Because wasn't episode 2 the one where the audio cut out? We played the thing with the clipping, so it was clipping the ends, started to clip the words, and made all the sentences real short?
I believe I left it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just at the end of it. That was my computer was lagging. That was before I have my current computer, which I need to replace my current computer because it's so
We've
old.
been doing this for a long time.
We have.
And I remember at one point when we were doing a lot of remote stuff, we were starting to get weird desyncs and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, Zencaster back then was well, then they changed it. Oh gosh, I'm going on this rabbit hole rant. They changed Zencaster, so then it only worked right in Chrome, and I had been running it in Firefox. And so then I switched to Chrome, but we still had issues with it. When I upgraded my computer, it helped a little bit, but sometimes when we had another guest, we had an episode. I will get to your email, Chris. We had an episode with Ryan C., who back then was a co-host of Head to Head Pinball, and the desync drift for just his audio was so bad. If I remember correctly, it took me 3 hours to manually paste it back in properly so it sounded like a coherent conversation. It was the worst edit job I have ever done on this podcast. If it hadn't been a guest, I'd have thrown the episode away.
Yeah.
His content was great, but it would just have this drift, and he would all of a sudden be out of sync with us. And this is why Tony and I have never used Zencaster again. I know like Loser Kids Pinball Podcast uses Zencaster. I think Triple Drain might be using Zencaster. When Tony and I record remote, we both fire up Audacity. We do like a 1, 2. We start recording, we like to say 1, 2, 3 on second intervals, and then I'm able to sync up the audio in post using those call outs because we're going off the same time.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. And that's how Zach and I do it also. Except we don't do the count. We just click record at the same time and I make Zach figure it out. Because if he wants us to do the 1, 2, 3, Zach, if you're listening, we can do the 1, 2, 3. If you think it'll help you, but he's just like, we just click record at the same time, and then he sorts it out with because we always say the same thing when we started. It's like, I'm recording, and I go, I'm recording, and I give him a microphone test.
No.
So anyway, all right, back to the email. I keep up. I'm going to read this part again. I keep up with all of your new releases, but find myself listening to old episodes as well. One topic I am not sure if you covered is this or that in your world. Thoughts on these? So, and I will. He ended with a PS. If you've done this before, feel free to skip. Which I don't recall. We may have done a this or that at some.
We've done
stage,
this or that at some stage, but it was not like this one.
But it was all pinball.
It was all pinball.
This is different. This is a mix of stuff. But I'm sticking
like
it at
this
the
one.
end. Yes, I thought you would. So anyway, so thank you, Chris. No, we have not done these questions before. So we'll go ahead, and I skipped over the questions because we might as well just do them instead of making the audience listen to them again, so they can think about them while we go. So I'll start with number 1. There are 5 of them. So number 1. Earthbound or Final Fantasy III US for the Super Nintendo. Tony, this or that. Earthbound or Final Fantasy III?
Final Fantasy III.
Same for me. I can't recall if I've played Earthbound.
I'm pretty sure I did at one time a long time ago. Like I rented it from a rental place, and that's about it. Like when I was young.
And I'm trying to remember, was Final Fantasy III Final Fantasy V in Japan? Because Final Fantasy II in the U.S. was Final Fantasy IV.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
But I don't recall. I have played all of them.
Right.
Up through 7. I haven't played through 8. I didn't play 9, which I know you really liked 9.
I did like 9.
So anyway, we both agree Final Fantasy. All right. Item number 2. These are the movie versions. The first Alien movie or the first Predator movie?
Man, see, I find this tough because I consider them very different.
They
types
are
of
very
movies.
different. This is tricky because one would be cleanly, I feel, classified as a suspense horror, and the other one is an action horror, which is like Predator is like Aliens,
right? And that's where that was my thought too.
So they're different genres, really. I think. I would say, oh gosh, this is tough.
It is
Predator. All right, I would end up picking Predator. Artistically, Alien is a better movie. However, and the suspense is excellent. The suspense is excellent. But I watch Predator more than Alien because I like the tonal shift of it being this mercenary adventure movie, and then all of a sudden they're the prey. And they're doing all the, they have to set it all up and they're trying to figure out what's going on and they don't understand because it's all of a sudden a supernatural thing inserted into a world. Whereas in Alien, they understand the idea of foreign pathogens and you get the sense that there's been other life kind of found, not intelligent life, but other life that's kind of been encountered in some capacity in that regard. So I like it for those reasons, even though I'd say artistically Alien is a stronger movie. But I would pick Predator. I enjoy watching it.
I think it's more fun. It's very quotable.
Yes.
And it has just some sheerly insane moments. And like you said, it's the whole the reversal, the outside of context problem that the Predator brings in changes the whole feel of the story.
The only other movie I can think of off the top of my head that does this is From Dusk Till Dawn.
That is a complete tonal shift in the middle of the movie.
And so that's, and I really like that movie too.
That is a good movie.
So anyway, so Predator is my pick. Tony, which one did you prefer?
I'll go with Predator as well.
Okay. All right. Number 3. This is the arcade game. Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat?
Here's the thing.
What is the thing?
By locking it in as the arcade.
Yes, that's what he said.
That I would, because my typical answer would be Street Fighter.
Right.
But I feel like when it first originally had came out and I was playing games in arcade, I played a lot more Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
So I think if I was going to choose based upon that, it was the original arcade Mortal Kombat. Because most of the time, I didn't really go super big Street Fighter until like Street Fighter 2 and later.
Right. Yeah, I don't really remember the first Street Fighter at all. However, I have played far more Street Fighter arcade than I have Mortal Kombat, so I would pick Street Fighter just as a series, I guess.
Also, I worked at a place in high school that had it had Mortal Kombat and
Virtua Fighter
were the two arcade games that they had back it was a pizza place back in the arcade corner.
Okay.
And given the choice between the two, I played Mortal Kombat a lot more.
Yeah, I could see that. But no, I ended up in arcades playing more Street Fighter. So, all right, we have a divergence there. All right.
Divergence.
Yes, not a very good movie, unfortunately. All right, PC gaming. Wolfenstein or Doom? Now, are we meaning classic or are we meaning the reboots? I guess
I'm
we can
go
interpret
with classic.
Okay.
I'm going to interpret it as classic.
All right, I will stick with that interpretation as well.
Doom.
All right. If I had to pick between the two, I agree with you. I would pick Doom. I probably played more Wolfenstein 3D than I did Doom. Maybe not Doom 2. Doom 2, maybe I played more. But versus regular Doom, part of the thing with Wolfenstein is you could easily edit and make your own maps. So I made my own Wolfenstein levels. And so I played that an awful lot with a friend of mine in high school. Doom, though, I picked because I feel it's a better game overall, and we still have our fun. So I think we've shared this before, but so Tony and I, we were to the same high school. And was this Doom or Doom 2? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably both, quite frankly. But so computers, this was an this is an age where computer networks didn't have much in the way of security, and computer network experts didn't have much in the way of security because they didn't know what us kids knew. They didn't know what we knew. So here's what would happen. We would hide copies of Doom in the network. We would have it stored, like we would take because back then you could run, the game would all be in one exe file. You would like have doom.exe and you just run it and the whole game is contained in that one file. So we would like rename Doom to something like project.wps, like word perfect file.
Right.
We'd make it look like a Word file. And so I was in a class. I was in AP Physics, and Tony was in journalism.
Yes, I was a newspaper nerd.
Yes, you were a newspaper nerd, and I was getting college credit in physics. And the reason why it's important to mention the AP Physics is because the way that class was run, any day after we had a test, we would go over the test results because the teacher wanted us to understand what we did right and what we did wrong, and that wouldn't take all that long. And then we wouldn't start the next lesson until the following day. So we had most of a period where there was nothing to do. So we'd get through the test grading. If we went way too quickly, we might actually move on. So we always had to ask enough questions that we would stall out. And the class knew how to do this. So we'd ask enough questions about what we did wrong to stall it out enough. And then he'd be like, all right, just, talk amongst yourselves or work on the computer or whatever you guys want to do. Tony, being the newspaper nerd, got to just roam the high school at will.
Okay.
Roam.
Okay. To be fair.
Roam. Like hordes of mutineers.
To be fair, it's because I in those years, I took the newspaper class. I took yearbook class, but because the person who ran the newspaper and ran the yearbook was the same teacher, and because I was a photo editor for the newspaper, my tasks that I was assigned in yearbook was to do newspaper stuff, not necessarily yearbook stuff. I was given a bare minimum of yearbook stuff just that had to get done. The majority of my time in yearbook was spent working on newspaper. And then I was also a student aide for that teacher. And those classes all backed up. So I had a 3-period block where I just worked on newspaper. That was the only thing I did for 3 periods a day.
Okay. So roaming, mutineer, roaming the halls, doing important newspaper things most of the time.
Yeah.
But,
well, the dark room for the photography was
Yes.
in the back of the science labs.
Right, which is where the physics class was. So
Right.
Tony would know what days were the grading days because I would tell him. And so when we got done with our test review, there would be Tony coming out of the little dark room area, and we would rename our Doom files back to Doom EXE on the network, fire them up, and play multiplayer in high school class of Doom just out in the open. And eventually, like the computer network person would occasionally find our copies of Doom and destroy them. You couldn't stop. It was like a virus. We couldn't stop us. We would hide them even further. Chains upon chains of subdirectories and stuff, because you basically had full control. This was before we had Cat5 cables. These were daisy chained computers.
Oh yeah,
using the T connectors and the terminals and all that. Like, this was that old. We're very old. So, but it meant we could get away with this stuff very easily. So anyway, so Doom just has a huge nostalgia thing.
It does.
Now, if you want to talk about the newer games, I'm also picking Doom.
Well, yes. The newer games.
Though the new Wolfenstein is a fun game.
It is a fun game, but the new Dooms are just...
They're very different styles now.
Pure enjoyment.
So, last one, number 5 of the this or that is...
The most important of them.
Yes, that's why I'm sure he put it as last. Tacos or pizza?
I have a patch on my laptop bag. This says, I'm into fitness. Fitness taco in my mouth. So that's all I got to say.
All right.
I'm a taco man.
I eat more tacos than I do pizza, so taco is the answer. That being said, I really do enjoy like the only pizza I can think of I've ever had that I hated was Gumby's. Oh my God. Trash tier pizza. That place isn't even around anymore back in Lawrence where the University of Kansas is based. But we only tried it once. Tony and I, we were roommates the first year we were in college, and we tried Gumby's one time and everyone hated it. It was the cheapest pizza that there was. And there was a lot of cheap pizza, but we were really cheap. And Gumby's was bad. It was just super bad. Whereas like tacos, I'm pretty tolerant of. Like, you want to give me a fake Taco Bell taco, I'll eat it. You want me to go and get some of the most authentic tacos up in Kansas City, Kansas? Absolutely. I'm all down for it. Yes,
I love tacos.
Tacos win out.
Tacos are the best. I mean, I eat a fair amount of pizza, but I would prefer a taco every day. I would prefer a taco enough that one of my favorite pizzas is a taco pizza. Just saying.
So anyway, Chris, thank you for the this or that. So we definitely didn't answer those ones before. Tony, video games.
I mean, I could seriously go off on a big old long thing on like movies and food and all of that.
And
that's for sure.
Again, if he's listened to a lot of the older episodes, he has probably heard us mention that we could easily do an eclectic movies podcast.
We could.
And because of all the older movies we could cover, there's plenty of content to go ahead and farm in that world. But this is not that, and we now have video games.
We are. And for a beautiful segue, let's talk about Doom.
Yes.
They have confirmed Doom: The Dark Ages will come out on May 15th. They've also confirmed that there will be no multiplayer.
Okay.
And it is not an open world game.
These are all fine with me.
These are all perfectly fine. I did find the interesting comment was that they consider in the Doom Eternal, the more modern futuristic Dooms, they considered it a very acrobatic kind of super fast-paced combat-y game.
The remake Doom, the second Doom remake, got kind of crazy with the amount of like flowing around, like three-dimensional movement. It was a lot. Let me just say, it was a lot to kind of embrace.
It was still very enjoyable.
It was. I mean, I beat it.
But in Doom: The Dark Ages, they say that you want to feel more like an invincible tank just wading through the enemies.
Oh, so Warhammer.
So yeah. And the video, some of the video clips from the trailer that was released look real good. Look real good. I'm excited that all these newer Doom games, the remakes have made me happy.
Yes, they're very good.
They're very pleasing. Also, in the set of announcement that came out in what was a surprise to me is a Ninja Gaiden 4.
Yes,
it's been almost 20 years since the last Ninja Gaiden game.
I played 3. That was like an early Xbox 360 release. It's probably on other platforms too. I don't remember if it was or wasn't, but I played it on 360. Well, it was hard.
Yeah. I remember when they made the announcement and brought Ninja Gaiden 3 out. It's like, holy crap, I haven't thought about Ninja Gaiden since like Nintendo.
Mm-hmm. And that was because I think 3 was their first 3D one. I think the first 2 were
they were side-scrollers.
Yeah, side-scrollers, excuse me. Yes.
So, it was so to see it coming back yet again after another almost 20 years, I just found that humorous. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine, but everything old is new again.
Yes.
Obsidian has brought back John Gonzalez. Sorry, he's the head writer. He was the head writer and the creative design lead for Fallout New Vegas, which is it has my favorite story in Fallout.
Yeah, I would say it is of the mainline Fallout games, which are really the only ones I could think of, and I would consider New Vegas a mainline. Best story
easily the best story. Well, they brought him back as creative director. He
Vegas 2.0
quickly said no to that. I know. That was everybody's hope.
Do
He
it.
quickly said no to Vegas 2.0.
Why not?
Though he's excited about the secret project, whatever it is he's working on.
I want the secret project to be Vegas 2.0.
It would be nice. You know what I would really like? I would like to see the storyline and everything of Vegas rebuilt with the gunplay and power armor style of Fallout 4.
The gunplay I liked. I never really embraced their making the power armor like need batteries and stuff. I don't know.
See, I like the feel of the power armor in 4 because it felt more like power armor.
Yeah, it did.
Instead of just like something.
I just didn't want to have to manage it. I was just being lazy. Maybe they'll do Fallout Reno, Nevada. So
Fallout Reno 911.
New Reno. Fallout New Reno. It's close, but it's different, so we can get away with it.
Now, and if you're wondering about something else, if you've not played a lot of Fallout New Vegas, he was one of the primary people behind the story and larger universe from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes, the hide in the tall grass game.
So he's well known in his heavy lore work. So anything they're going to bring him back to be tagged into, I think, is that we're going to know it's going to at least have a good story. So Sony, we had this whole big thing with their mandatory PSN requirements for Helldivers 2. They have been starting to withdraw their mandatory account requirements for at least the single player games.
Okay.
Because their argument was, well, we have these so people can't cheat. So everyone was pushing back. It's like, okay, so why do you have this mandatory PSN requirement for a single player only game?
Right.
So they're finally decided, okay, we're going to start walking back the mandatory PSN accounts for single player games. And instead they're going to say if you have you log into your PSN account, you get in-game benefits.
Oh, goodies.
So bonuses like costumes in Horizon Zero Dawn and Spider-Man 2 remakes. Apparently God of War Ragnarok gives you like huge resource bundles if you use your PSN thing. And it gives you access to a New Game Plus armor set way earlier than New Game Plus. So
yes, use bribes to get them to sign.
Bribe them to stay on your PSN. I mean, you've won the console war. It's okay, guys.
Yes. I'm surprised they're accommodating this at all, quite frankly.
It's like, you've won. It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
I think it could be because they're getting such horrible pushback from the PC side of things.
The PC people are kind of whiny.
We are. We are. I definitely played a lot more Xbox-related titles on PC than PlayStation-related titles, just because most of the PlayStation ones are broken.
But that's Microsoft's plan.
That is Microsoft's plan. And they need a plan because they announced their latest financials, and overall their gaming division is down 7% year on year.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes an almost 30% drop in hardware sales.
Yep.
They are just completely fallen off the console sales market. Their one feather in their cap, their one uptick is that they've set new records for Game Pass for the quarter, and their PC subscriber base increased by over 30%. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason for that.
Yes.
They were a day one Game Pass for Call of Duty 6.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is why they bought Activision.
Which is right. And it launched things. What's interesting is it did not appear to have scavenged the overall Call of Duty 6 sales. Sales were still extremely high on PlayStation and PC.
Yes, I've heard somewhere, I didn't read the details, but developer notation that Game Pass does not hurt their game sales.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen the overall set of numbers is that Call of Duty 6 is the highest selling, most played Call of Duty ever.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, Phil Spencer's been going around. I've seen some other people even echoing, saying that, no, this is the right strategy because I know a lot of gamers, Xbox gamers are like this. We don't like this. Are you going to get rid of the console? Phil keeps saying, no, we plan to keep making hardware, but the answer is always, well, but there's no exclusives. So why would I buy your hardware? Why wouldn't I buy Sony's hardware? And Phil's response has been, well, if our hardware's got the best specs, we would think if you cared about the performance, you would embrace it. But if not, we're okay with you playing somewhere else too.
To be fair, if you care about performance, you'll play on PC.
See, that's where a lot of the people will say that. But
I mean, to be fair, I use an Xbox controller on my PC.
Sure. Phil's whole strategy is we don't care where you play. And I've heard there was some information that I guess had kind of purportedly leaked out of Microsoft. The target that Microsoft has been giving them is on the Game Pass numbers. They want to see very robust Game Pass growth, and they think they can get there now that they own both Bethesda and Activision.
And I think they've got a very real chance of it.
So we'll see.
Well, that's
it's
definitely
a change. It's a big change from the old console war philosophy. I actually just yesterday watched a video on the failure of the Sega Saturn. And that whole, I forgot about that whole console war stuff back then where it was like Sega do what Nintendo don't and all of that. Like it was just bloodletting. And the last we saw was right after the Xbox One came out and the Sony did this is how you let someone else play your game on a PlayStation 4, and they just handed the game to the next person. And it's a wicked burn because Don Maddox era of Xbox, and like here it's $100 more with a Kinect that people don't want, and you need to go online and do this thing too, and it needs to be always on, or it needs to touch home base once a day. All of this stuff just. If you don't like it, you can buy a 360. Just terrible.
Yeah, because I remember when they had some of their issues when they were doing the location tie-in stuff, where like troops would deploy and it would stop working.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of those examples, like military examples were brought. And to be fair, what they wanted to do then would have been more palatable today than
it was when they tried it. Yeah.
There were still a lot of data caps back then, a lot of instances where people didn't have an internet. Well, we don't have the best internet in the world. Our internet infrastructure is a lot better. What major internet providers still do throttling and data caps? Cox Communications, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It's fallen out of it. Like maybe Comcast still does, but I haven't even heard that. I don't know. Things change. I mean, but we remember the era where you paid per text message on a cell phone. Things just change. So, and this is changing too.
I remember getting screwed because I called an acquaintance 5 minutes too early, and then we had a 3-hour phone conversation. So instead of being after the 8 p.m. super cheap rate, it was the before 8 p.m. super expensive rate.
Yes,
so
peak and non-peak hours.
I had a 3-hour phone call that cost me $175.
Yeah. Now we just get charged all that with all the subscriptions they tell us we need that was supposedly going to be cheaper than cable.
Right. Oh, I know. I got the notice Netflix is going up again.
Mm-hmm. That's what they do.
And it's the one that I can't get.
Nope, you can't let it go. The children. Think of the
It's
children.
the one everybody watches.
Think of the children.
I'm like, is anybody actually watching this? And everybody in the house, like, other than me, raises their hand. I'm like, okay. I'm the only person who hasn't. Because until I watched Arcane back in November, I hadn't watched Netflix probably since the last season of Stranger Things. So,
Yeah.
so that was it. I mean, I've been using it a little now because I'm watching Breaking Bad.
Right.
Not Breaking Bad. I've already Better Call Saul.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense.
I've seen Breaking Bad, so
Well, we made it.
we survived.
We did.
Fairly low news
It
overall.
was. But hopefully people were entertained. And if you were and you haven't paid enough to Netflix, you can pay money to us by joining our Patreon. We do have tiers as low as $1 a month. That's at patreon.com/eclectic_gamers. You can reach out to us, eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com, or on facebook.com/eclecticgamerspodcast.
We're available on Twitch and Instagram as eclectic_gamers.
And we'll be back in a couple weeks. What will be out? We don't know. Maybe we'll have more content for that get emailed in. We do appreciate that. It definitely helps pad out the episode.
Yeah, especially with this right at the beginnings and ends of the year when the pinball nose is real light.
Yeah, it's just, things will warm up as we move along, but we're not quite there yet. But until that next episode, my name is Dennis.
I've been Tony.
Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.